Welcome to your first lesson in web design. In this video, we are going to show you how to download and install the tool that you're going to be using to create web pages in the first part of our course. It's called Aptana. To get it, just open up your web browser, and in this course, I'm going to primarily demonstrate things using Google Chrome, although other web browsers will work if you want an easy follow along where all the keyboard shortcuts are going to be the same. I suggest you just use Chrome as we move forward, but feel free to use whatever web browser you have available. The Aptana download, the button for it is going to be in this slider that's at the top of this. So if it slides back and forth, just toggle this button until you see the blue button and then click it. Then the next page is going to try to attempt to detect if you're on a Windows or a Mac, and it should detect it. If not, there are other options here under downloads to get the correct version. Just click Studio 3, that's what we're using. But if it detects that you're on a Mac and that is correct, then click this. And if it detects you're on Windows and that is correct, then again click this. So the process for installing on Mac or Windows is nearly identical. Once it's finished downloading, it will look like this. In the lower left-hand corner, you're just going to double-click it, and it'll pop up with a little wizard that basically you're just going to click Finish and or Next, Next, Next until it completes its install, and you'll be up and running in no time. All right, so once you have that installed, when you open Aptana, it will look like this. So let me take a few minutes and try to explain to you what is Aptana and how do I use it. Well, the arrangement of these little panels that you see here, which are technically called views, can be put in whatever arrangement we want or feel is useful. So if I wanted them to look like this, and let me close a couple. If I wanted to resize them, I can do anything that I really want in here. And one of the more common questions that I get with students using Aptana is I accidentally closed a panel such as my Project Explorer. This is what's going to contain all of your website files and projects. So let me close that. And right off the bat, when we start this course, how do I get that back? Well, you're going to go to Window, and then, like I said, these things are actually called views. So these panels are technically known as views, and to get it back, we're going to go Show View and then select Project Explorer, and here's where all your files will be. All right, so that's the first thing I'd like to show you. Let me go ahead and show you how to reset this view. So perhaps along the way, you want more workspace because many of our students use Macs and the screen might be a little small, and then you want to resize these so that you have maybe your preview pane over here and your HTML over here. How do I reset this back to the way it was? Well, there is under the Window menu again a way to reset your perspective. So the arrangement of your views is called the perspective. That's how you're looking at your current project. So when you click reset, it's going to say, do you want to reset to the current defaults? Just confirm it by saying yes. And this is how it looked when I first opened it. So those are the first two things I'd like to show you on how to work with it. And the next thing is you're going to be creating projects using Aptana. And there's two ways to create a project. The first way would just go under the File menu, select New, and then select Web Project. But sometimes students find this to be a little cumbersome, so let me show you a shortcut to get to the same spot. There's this button bar right here, and this far left one says Web Project when you click on it. So we basically just want to do this. And now we have all these options. We can do the default, the basic web template, and then do these things called boilerplates. We're not going to get into this advanced stuff yet. We're just going to start with a default project and give it a name. All right, so this first one's going to be called Lesson 1, and I'm going to be breaking up the parts of Lesson 1 into several videos. This first part, we're just going to focus on the bare bones page. So we're going to call this Lesson 1, and I'm going to go ahead and click Finish. And when it's done, you're going to see a little folder pop up under Project Explorer. So this is basically empty right now, but it shows you this is where your project is. Now, the next tip that I'm going to give you with your working with Aptana is I always keep this button right here checked, Link with Editor. Now, what that does is that as I'm working with files over here, it makes in this big like master portion the current file that I have selected pop up. So now let's make a couple of files here, one of which I'll finish in this video, and the other two will finish in subsequent videos. So the first file that we're going to make is going to be the main page. So I'm going to click File, New, and you're going to see File here. But just like the web project, there's a shortcut for that. I can just go to this button right here and select File. And I need to name it. So let's just call this Lesson 1 and click Finish. I'm sorry, I need to put .html. All right, so this is going to be our HTML page. And click Finish. All right, so this is blank. Now let's also make a file for our CSS. So I'm going to use my shortcut button right here and say File. And this is going to be lesson1.css. And you don't need to know what that quite means yet. I'll explain that along the way. And then the next one that I'm going to make one more file that's called lesson1.js and click Finish. All right, so now whenever I select one of these tabs, the current file in the project system is highlighted. Or conversely, if I do it over here, you can start to see that the tab jumps. And I find that convenient. And all you have to do is click this once, and for the rest of the course, it's going to stay synchronized. So that's my next tip to you. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and save everything. All right, so you have your two save buttons. You have one here that says Save, and then you have Save All, which is right there. All right, so let's double-click our Lesson 1 page, and let's start making a basic page. And I'm going to show you a few other things that we can do with Aptana. So the very first line of an HTML document is always the same. It's your Doctype declaration. This tells the web browser what kind of document that it's going to be working with. So when I start making the document, everything is going to be composed in these things that are called markup tags. And sometimes they're also referred to as angle brackets. So this less than sign and this greater than sign are your angle brackets. So from here on out, you'll probably hear me say your left angle bracket or your right angle bracket or just tags in general. And when you start typing, Aptana wants to predict what you want. And because you're on the very first line, its very first choice is Doctype. And this is a special type of HTML element that has an exclamation point on it. So I'm just going to hit the Tab key to auto-complete it. So when you start getting used to creating your web pages, you're going to find that using the keyboard shortcuts or the IntelliSense really helps you write your web pages faster, create them faster. So get a sense and a feel for using the IntelliSense, and then it's going to just lead to your development of web pages in a much more efficient manner. All right, so right after Doctype, we're going to say HTML. So this is an HTML web page. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the next line, and I'm going to make another element. So this next element is considered the root of the HTML document, and the element name is HTML. Now, this type of element has two tags to it. The first part is called an opening tag, and the second part is a closing tag. And notice that they are basically exactly the same. The only difference is this forward-leaning slash in the closing tag. So the first one is the opening, the second one is the closing, and I'm going to put some space in here. Now with HTML documents, we can add as much white space as we want, and for formatting and readability, we really want to add quite a bit of white space, and that helps us see the code better and read it easier. So as the web page is read in by the computer, by the web browser that ultimately will receive it, it's going to ignore extra white space. So all of this space that I just added is actually shrunk down to one white space character. So keep that in mind as we move forward, and I'll probably repeat that a couple of times in class. So the next thing that we're going to add is called the head section. Now the head section is not visible in our web page. It actually tells the computer and the web browser about our web page. And the very first thing that you always put in the head section is the meta tag. So meta meaning meaning. So that's a term that gives meaning to our web page. And this tag is going to also contain some extra information. These are called attributes. So I'm going to type char set, which is actually an abbreviation for character set. And here you can see that there are tons of character sets around the world. Now the one that we're going to use is UTF-8. Here I just kind of push my down arrow key until I saw it, and I'm going to tab autocomplete. And then I'm going to, instead of having an extra closing tag, I'm going to close this right now. This is called a self-closing tag because it doesn't have a beginning and an end to it. All right, right after the meta, I'm going to add a title to this document. Now the title is what appears in the tab of the web page. So if I went back to the Aptana web page, they had in the tab, it says Aptana, download Aptana. So the title tag is what puts that there. So I'm going to put in my first web page right there. And then I'm going to save this. And now we're going to put in the visible content. And we're going to keep this really easy right now. I'm going to create a body tag. And the body tag contains everything that is visible in our web page. So what we're going to put in here first is called an H1. An H1 is the first heading on the page. And we're going to say, hello, web design class, exclamation point. And then I'm going to go to the end of the line, hit return a couple times to add some extra space, and then I'm going to put in a paragraph. Now a paragraph is created with this P tag, so it looks just like this. And I'm going to just say this is an example paragraph. All right, at this point, I want to show you how you can preview your work. Now, this little asterisk that is up here next to the L in Lesson 1 in my tab is telling me that my web page is not saved yet. So we may have to make sure that we save this web page. And then Aptana has a built-in previewer. It's this little eyeball right here. And this is what our web page looks like so far. We've made an extremely basic web page where there's only text on it. But it might be helpful for you if we undock this. So I'm going to click the tab, and I can go top to bottom, but I actually like to view this side to side. So what we need to do now is basically put these panels all in one and then divide that panel up. So I'm going to actually click on this gray space right here and then drag that up top. Now they're all in one window. And I'm going to click and hold this tab and then drag it to the right side of the bigger window. And when I do that, now I'm split screen between my code over here and my preview over there. And you might want to kind of resize this to however it fits on your screen. But at least now when I save this, I can add some more stuff in here, and then when I save it, it pops in over here. And I think that's useful to see how your web page looks as you develop it. The other thing that I want to kind of show you one more time here is that the white space here doesn't matter. So I'm going to pull this all up to save room for the rest of what I'm going to put in here. And as long as it's readable, as it's understandable over here on the left, that should be good. So the reason why I'm indenting is because anything indented is really kind of showing that it belongs to the body tag here, or this stuff belongs to the head section. And when you indent, it's easier to see what elements belong to what. All right, so the next thing that we're going to add is we're going to add a block quote. And this web page is going to be about a moon landing. So I'm going to add the block quote element, also known as tag, and I'm going to add an attribute to it. Just like the meta tag above had the charset attribute. An attribute, by the way, is a property or a setting that you can apply to any element. And the one that we're going to do is called site. So I'm going to add site, and when I select it using the IntelliSense, it adds site equals with 2 double quotes. So in between the 2 double quotes, we're going to put a web address from NASA where I got this quote from. So that web address is going to be http://www.nasa.gov/mission pages, mission_pages/Apollo/Apollo 11. .html. All right, so that's the web address of where I'm getting this block quote from. And then basically in between the opening and closing block quotes, I'm going to put the quote itself. And the quote here is about Neil Armstrong stepping foot on the moon. All right, so it's going to say at 10:56 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, EDT, Armstrong is ready to plant the first human foot on another world. Now, I'm hitting return to put this on another line so it fits within my window here, because I know, once again, the extra white space does not matter to the computer or browser. It will shrink down to just one white space character. Okay, the next part of this quote goes like this. With more than 500 million people watching on television, comma, he climbs down the ladder and proclaims, :space, quote, that's one small step for man, comma, one giant leap for mankind. All right, so if I expand out my HTML view here, this is what my block quote looks like now. So when I hit save, it will pop into the preview pane. So let me make this a little bit bigger now. And you're going to see that the block quote gets indented a little bit. That's just the way it's naturally treated. So later on when we add style to this page, we could make that look different. But for now, we'll just continue on. All right, so one more thing I want to show you how to add would be an image. All right, so let me write the tag first, then we're going to actually put the image in our project. So the tag, which is known as the img element, so it starts like this, img, and that of course would be the abbreviation for image. It requires two attributes to be added. So just like the site and the car set above, there will be two attributes for every image tag to make it a valid image tag. And the first one is called src, and that stands for source. So src stands for source, and we're going to set it equal to the name of the file that we want to show. In this case, it's a picture, and the name of the file is going to be called Moon Landing. This will be available on Schoology in the Lesson 1 folder for you to download, and I'll show you how to put it in just a second. All right, the second attribute is called alt, A-L-T, and basically that stands for alternate text. So if the picture doesn't display, it will say whatever I put in quotes, which is going to be Moon Landing. And this, just like the meta tag above, is a self-closing tag. So I'm just going to put in the backslash and the greater than sign to close it out. Now I'd like to show you what the alt text is going to look like when the picture isn't saved in your project correctly, or it's not referenced correctly, because this becomes another common question that comes up is, why isn't my picture showing up? Well, it could be for several reasons, so let me kind of go over that now. So the first thing is, let's go ahead and preview this page without having the picture in our project. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save, and you're going to see the alternate text is displaying, Moon Landing, but the picture isn't showing. I get this little X. So what that means is that it can't find this file right here. So the source is supposed to be Moon Landing, and because source doesn't really have anything besides the file name, that's called a relative link. This right here is a more absolute link. It goes to the internet and tries to find something. I could even put like C drive / moon landing like this, and that would be an absolute link. You really don't want to do that in a web project. You want to have relative links like I have here. But let's go ahead and put this in here. You can find this picture on Schoology under our Unit 1 or Lesson 1 folder. It's called Moon Landing. Just download it, and then once you have it, all you have to do is just drag it into your project like this. And on a Windows computer, you're going to see this little plus symbol. On a Mac, it's going to be a green circle with a plus in it, and then just release. All right, then it's going to give you this file operation and ask, do you want to copy it or do you want to link it? You almost always want to copy it, so just leave it selected with the copy button, and in pops Moon Landing. So now let me move this back over, and now that it's in here, it's saying in the source that it's sitting in the same directory as Lesson 1. So if I go ahead and save everything and then click Preview, in pops my picture. Now another common thing to do in a website is to add a folder for images. So I'm just going to right click on Lesson 1. Let me do that again a little slower. I right clicked on Lesson 1, and I'm going to put a folder in here, and it's going to be my images folder, and I'm going to go ahead and click Finish. Now let me just move my Moon Landing image into this images folder, and what I'm going to do now is push, I have to save everything. So I'm going to stop this, let me re-preview, and you can see that I've broken the relationship again. Let me put this over to the right. All right, so now it thinks that my Moon Landing should be side by side with my lesson1.html, and it's not. It's in a folder called images. So to fix that, I have to say the name of that folder is images, and when I put / it starts to predict, oh hey, there's a Moon Landing image in there. Is that what you want? And you can double click it. And that's a very common thing to do, is just to put all your images in one place, put all your CSS in another, put all your JavaScript in another, that kind of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And at this point, we have finished part 1 of our project. I've introduced you to Aptana, and we've created a very simple web page here that has some basic text and a picture on it. So I'd like you to review now. So open up your Schoology to our Lesson 1 folder and click on Part 1 Post Assessment. And there's going to be several questions in here about things that I've talked about in this video. And the questions should go in order for you. So if you've stumbled upon something you don't recall, you can rewind this video, watch it again, and answer the question. All right, so finish this before you go on to part 2 and start building the style of the page.